Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I am doing another recording for December 20th. This is a recording that's going to be going over current events, but also a little bit of philosophy, right? I did a video talking about what's been spreading around New York, in Canada, and the UK, and how to mitigate it, all right? If you pay attention to this video and you boost up your immune system, you're going to be better off, right? And you'll slow down the aging process. And it works. It's something that I do every day. And don't you want to look like Dr. Paul Cottrell? Or do you want to look like Alex Jones? Oh, by the way, Alex Jones is chronologically younger than Dr. Paul Cottrell. Dr. Paul Cottrell is an older individual than Alex Jones. But does Dr. Paul Cottrell look younger than Alex Jones? Now, why is that? Why is that? Could it be that Dr. Paul Cottrell's anti-aging protocol works? Oh, yeah, it works. There's 100% it works. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. You follow my lead, I'll boost up your immune system, and you're going to slow down the aging process. You're going to get healthy. It's a holistic approach, and it's about prevention. Because if you start getting some sort of problem, guess what? Physicians can't fix it. They can treat it. They can't fix it. All right? You follow my lead. I'll walk with you down a better health path. All right. Please go to my store. Help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. I want people healthy. Right? Why? Why am I doing all this? Why? My brother died from heart disease when he was 36 years old. No one was there for him. No one was telling him how to get healthy, right? But a lot of it is self-induced. You got to stop eating poorly. You need to exercise, proper supplementation, right? Better outlook on life. It's a holistic approach, but it works, all right? I want you healthy. And when our society is healthier, then the United States will be more productive. We'll have less cost in healthcare. And we'll have a better society. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nanosilver soaps. These will help with your skin health. You can get it in lemongrass, charcoal tea tree, also in lavender and in peppermint. Very high quality soaps. These are soaps that I use every day to improve the health of your skin. And it's made from structural nanosilver. It will neutralize. And that's going to be really important, especially with the stuff that's floating around out there. And get the Max 35 or Cleanse. This is the first pillar of my anti-aging protocol to boost up the immune system. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Cleanse is 30 parts per million. They're at different price points based on your affordability. Take a teaspoon a day every day. Swish in your mouth, gargle, 20 seconds or 30 seconds, then swallow it. What this will do is help neutralize and improve your oral cavity and your oropharynx, maintain a mucosal barrier, and help the health of your epithelial cells. When you do that, you're improving your innate immune system. And voila, you're also neutralizing. This is a great way to slow down the aging process and boost up that immune system. Now, how can you slow down the aging process by boosting up your immune system? It's really simple. If you're chronically sick, you age faster. If you're not chronically sick, your body can focus on areas instead of the inflamed tissue that was diseased due to the sickness, due to this chronic sickness that people get normally during the cold season, all right? So you want to mitigate that. If you mitigate it, then your body is healing. It's less inflamed, there's less free radicals, and you slow down the aging process. That's the reason why it's part of the anti-aging protocol. I've been taking Max 35 or Cleanse or Max 14 for over 5 years, every day. If you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, Take a tablespoon or two a day. And once everything's all clear, go back to your maintenance dose of a teaspoon a day. All right. And also, I want to make sure that you get the structural nail silver drops. You can get it in blueberry, in cherry flavor, or also honey and lemon. Very high quality drops. The moment you start feeling that throat irritation, take them right away. Mitigate the problem. Create the secretions, protect your epithelial cells and your oral pharynx. And guess what? You'll weather the storm. If someone around you is not feeling well because of the cold season, take them prophylactically. And also, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the resveratrol. Resveratrol will soak up free radicals, help the health of your mitochondria. You'll have more ATP. It'll help with youthful gene expression and get rid of cells that are in senescence. This will also help the basal layer of your skin. And voila, you will look younger. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. Decades. This stacks really well with C60 and clarity factor. So please go to my store, get the resveratrol. All right. I want to start with a philosopher who declared war on universities. This is a great short clip here. Pay attention.
Michael Gibson studied philosophy and classics at NYU, Chicago, and Oxford. And now his life mission is to destroy the university system. Michael considers universities to be part of what he calls the paper belt, a series of centralized bureaucracies whose power relies on printing paper. Money by the government, laws passed in DC, newspapers printed in New York, and diplomas given by universities. As an anarchist, Michael believes that this paper belt today is just as corrupt as the Catholic Church was when it was selling indulgences. And as a venture capitalist, Michael thinks universities are a source of stagnation and will offer an alternative path for how to engender innovation instead. My name is Jonathan B. I'm a founding member of Cosmos. We deliver educational programs, fund research, invest in AI startups, and believe that philosophy is critical to building better technology. If you want to join our ecosystem of philosopher builders, you can find roles we're hiring for, events we're hosting, and other ways to get involved on jonathanb.com/cosmos. Without further ado.
Pretty interesting. I like this term, the paper belt, and this comparison between the indulgences of the Catholic Church and getting a degree from a university, because you have to spend so much money to get that degree, and it is under the assumption that you're going to get a good job. You pay and you'll get a good job, just like the indulgences. If you pay the Catholic Church, your sins are absolved and you will go to heaven. But what people are starting to notice, especially the youth, that once they get their degree, they can't get a job. Just like the Catholics, when they pay the indulgent fee, they probably still went to hell. All right. What I want to do is take a look at the Syria footage. The United States hit Syria last night in retaliation of that ambush that took place. So let's listen.
Texas is feeling unwelcome.
We're following some news here as we learned yesterday that the U.S. military launched strikes in Syria, and now we're getting some new video in here showing that operation. Putting this up on your screen right now from U.S. Central Command. This was a post to social media saying U.S. forces struck 70 plus ISIS targets in Syria, peace through strength. And you can see to the left side of your screen there is a still of that video. And I want to put that up on your screen here now. Once again, this was posted to social media just last night. The Trump administration launched military strikes yesterday in Syria to eliminate Islamic State group fighters and weapons sites in retaliation for an ambush attack that killed 2 U.S. troops and an American civilian interpreter almost a week ago. A U.S. official described it as a large-scale strike that hit 70 targets in areas across central Syria that had IS infrastructure and weapons. Another U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to the Associated Press to discuss the sensitive operation said more strikes should be expected. The new military operation in Syria comes even as the Trump administration has said it's looking to focus closer to home in the Western Hemisphere, targeting alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean Sea and vowing to keep seizing sanctioned oil tankers as part of a pressure campaign on Venezuela's leader. The U.S. has shifted significant resources away from the Middle East to further those goals. Its most advanced aircraft carrier arrived in South American waters last month from the Mediterranean Sea. President Trump pledged, quote, very serious retaliation after the shooting in the Syrian desert, for which he blamed the Islamic State. Those killed were among hundreds of U.S. troops deployed in eastern Syria as part of a coalition fighting the militant group. I also wanted to share this post here on your screen with you from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He says U.S. forces commenced Operation Hawkeye Strike in Syria to eliminate ISIS fighters, infrastructure, and weapons sites in direct response to the attack on U.S. forces that occurred on December 13th in Syria. This is not the beginning of a war. It is a declaration of vengeance. The United States of America, under President Trump's leadership, will never hesitate and never relent to defend our people. As we said directly following the savage attack, if you target Americans anywhere in the world, you will spend the rest of your brief, anxious life knowing the United States will hunt you, find you, and ruthlessly kill you. Today, we hunted and we killed our enemies, lots of them, and we will continue. We also heard...
That is the type of warrior spirit that I want from the Secretary of War. It's awesome. That's exactly what we need. We need people that are saying, you're our enemy, we're going to kill you. Now, we're not going to play patty cake. We're not going to, drag this out litigiously. We're just going to kill you. This is that warrior spirit. This is that idea of, you know what? Our military needs to have a little bit of Julius Caesar, going into Gaul. And you kill the enemy.
President Trump last night in a speech in North Carolina, and he hailed the operation as a, quote, massive strike that took out the, quote, ISIS thugs in Syria who were trying to regroup. Syria's foreign ministry, in a statement on X following the launch of the U.S. strike, said that last week's attack underscores the urgent necessity of strengthening international cooperation to combat terrorism in all its forms, and that Syria is committed to fighting ISIS and ensuring that it has no safe havens on Syrian territory, that will continue to intensify military operations against it wherever it poses a threat. IS has not said it carried out the attack on the U.S. service members, but the group has claimed responsibility for 2 attacks on Syrian security forces since, one of which killed 4 Syrian soldiers. So once again, as we shared this news here with you last night on Live Now for Vox, we are now just getting in this video that was posted late last night on social media, as we're now getting a glimpse there at some of the footage of that operation. We'll continue to follow this here on Live Now from Fox. We also do have another post here from the White House that my producer just put up that I wanted to share, saying, all terrorists who are evil enough to attack Americans are hereby warned. You will be hit harder than you have ever been hit before if you, in any way, attack or threaten the USA. And that is a quote there from President Donald J. Trump, posted from the White House account.
Okay.
Right now, anti-Semitism is louder than ever.
A Syrian monitoring group says at least 5 members of the Islamic State group, including a cell leader, have been killed in a wave of US strikes. President Trump said that they were retaliation for the killing of 3 Americans in Syria last week. More than 70 targets were hit, most of them in a mountainous area north of Palmyra. Aircraft from Jordan were also involved. Our correspondent, Julio Pacheco, is in Beirut and has been monitoring the situation. He gave us his assessment of the events.
President Trump has described it as a massive strike that he said had the full support of the Syrian government. And as you say, the US military said that more than 70 targets linked to the Islamic State group were hit in central parts of Syria with fighter jets, helicopters, and artillery. And I thought it was interesting that the US Defense Secretary appeared to be trying to play down concerns that this could be the beginning of a war. He said this was in response to the attack that happened last week in Syria, an attack that killed 2 American soldiers and also an American civilian interpreter. But at the same time, he indicated that these attacks are likely to continue. And there have been reports in US media saying that these attacks are going to continue for weeks. Now, this really shows you how fragile the security situation in Syria is. I was in Syria just weeks ago for the first anniversary of the fall of the Assad regime. Obviously, there were celebrations, but huge security challenges remain, including the threat coming from the Islamic State group. And there has been the concern that these people could try to take advantage of this transition in Syria to carry out attacks, to expand their operations. We've seen a rise in the number of attacks carried out by IS in recent weeks. And this has been a concern not only of the new Syrian authorities, but also of a number of countries, including the US. And the Americans still have a presence in Syria. They have 1,000 soldiers in the country, and their mission is precisely to counter any kind of resurgence by the Islamic State group in Syria. The key point here is that many believe that if there is, if this government in Syria fails, the alternative is chaos and even more violence. Syria remains extremely divided. The government in Damascus doesn't have control over the entire country. And obviously, there is this significant threat coming from the Islamic State.
The original Louisiana hot sauce isn't trying to be hotter than some ghost pepper bear spray. See, down here, we know the flavor and not just heat. So go on, splash boldly.
All right. Let's listen in to what's in the U.S. weapon package for Taiwan and why China is angry. Yeah, angry. They're angry that we're going to protect Taiwan. Heaven forbid. But before we do that, before we save Taiwan, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium zinc and the vitamin C magnesium. Vitamin C magnesium will help with your skin, help boost up your immune system, and help with your brain function. Magnesium and zinc helps with your immune system and your brain function. Take them together for max benefit, especially in the winter season. But you should be doing this every day as part of your anti-aging protocol to boost up your immune system. Because a better immune system means a better health outcome for you. Omega-3. Omega-3 will help your cardiovascular health. It'll help to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels, bring down systemic inflammation, and help to prevent your red blood cells from sticking too much. When you do that, you'll have a better cardiovascular system and you're reducing plaque formation. Super important. Take omega-3 every day. Digestive enzyme complex. This is going to help to reduce the load on your pancreas. What this is going to do is help you to digest carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. You'll be able to absorb your nutrients and reduce that load on your pancreas. That's super important, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. No matter how healthy you are, your pancreas isn't as healthy or functions as well as when it was younger. All right? For most people. All right? I'm pretty healthy, but my pancreas doesn't work as well as it used to when I was in my 20s. And I guarantee you, it's the same thing for you. So, digestive enzyme complex is going to reduce that load, but it also has bromelain in it. And bromelain helps to break up clots, super important. And the proteolytic enzymes in here break up glycoproteins. And glycoproteins are some of the things that you need to worry about, especially with what's going on in the winter season. This is the reason why I said take the digestive enzyme complex during the crisis of 2020. because of the proteolytic enzymes in here. Amazing how that works. And these dual purpose deodorants, right? You can get it in citrus or peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. They don't have any aluminum or baking soda. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. You can't get a better deodorant bar than this. This is the best deodorant bar you can buy. And I'm not speaking in hyperbole. Why? Because it's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. I'm pretty sure that your deodorant isn't made from essential oils from the Himalayas. Okay. And when you're using this every day, it's for males and females, but use this every day as a deodorant. But it'll help to detoxify your body. And when you're detoxifying your body regularly, guess what? Your immune system and your endocrine system perform better. You slow down the aging process. Amazing. Get a few bars for your household. Please go to my store. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. All caps, discount 5. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. And if you've been paying attention to what I'm saying in this video, maybe you're going to be able to mitigate what's in episode Fusion 46. Pay attention to what I have in Fusion 46. I'm giving you the recipe to boost up your immune system. And I say it every day. I'm kind of tired of saying it every day. But, okay. Let's listen in why China's upset.
And has been limited to tough rhetoric.
But the new head of Taiwan,
Just single package of weapons sale to Taiwan in U.S. history. Many of the systems mirror those the U.S. has supplied to Ukraine. The move is part of a broader U.S. effort to help Taiwan, like Ukraine, deter and, if necessary, defend itself against a far larger neighbor. Beijing has responded angrily. Nick Schifrin reports.
in Taiwan, the military prepares for war with American artillery designed to sink Chinese invaders. It's the very same weapon the U.S. provided Ukraine to target Russian invaders. Taiwan is ordering $4 billion worth of this mobile artillery system, HIMARS. And $4 billion worth of self-propelled artillery, also widespread in Ukraine. Today's package also includes $1 billion worth of autonomous drones made by U.S. manufacturer Ontrol. For years, the U.S. has urged Taiwan to focus less on big, expensive weapon systems that are unlikely to survive a Chinese invasion, and instead fight like Ukraine. Ukrainian soldiers used less expensive mobile weapons like the Javelin to disable Russian tanks. After years of debate, Taiwan has embraced the same weapons. An idea of fighting like a porcupine, making itself impossible or fatal to swallow. Including with the Javelin, $375 million worth included in today's package.
I think the Russia-Ukraine war is a wake-up call for Taiwan. Like Ukraine, we have a powerful adversary nearby. That's why we need more asymmetric weapons to strengthen both our defense and ground forces and counter a powerful air force such as China.
China's People's Liberation Army, or PLA, has launched one of the fastest military modernizations in world history. The U.S. says the buildup is custom designed to prevent U.S. forces that come to Taiwan's rescue, as demonstrated in these propaganda videos, and to be able to invade Taiwan by 2027. Today's package of weapons designed to stop this from happening.
These are weapons that will really prevent the PLA, or maybe even prevent Xi Jinping from making a decision to send the PLA across the strait, because they will impose very high costs on an invading PLA.
Bonnie Glaser is the Indo-Pacific Program Managing Director of the German Marshall Fund.
It's a great honor to be with a friend of mine.
Glaser says there was no guarantee President Trump would send Taiwan weapons, and he's made clear he wants a deal with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. But the new national security strategy declares deterring a conflict over Taiwan, ideally by preserving military overmatch, is a priority.
Many people have suggested that President Trump is softening his language toward China, that he may be willing to use Taiwan as a bargaining chip, and that he doesn't really care very much about Taiwan's security. But I think that this language tells us otherwise. He is not pursuing a more isolationist strategy or pulling back from our commitment to Taiwan.
Which is exactly what angered Beijing today, calling the weapons announcement a violation of diplomatic agreements and an attack on Chinese sovereignty and security.
The U.S. side is already covering itself from the fire it's ignited. The Taiwan question is China's core interest and the first impassable red line in Sino-U.S. relations. No one should underestimate the firm will and strong capability of the Chinese government and people to defend its national sovereignty and territorial integrity.
This is a bit of a warning message. However, it is only rhetoric. And this is the third arms sale that has taken place since the two leaders met. And China's reaction has been limited to tough rhetoric.
But the new head of Taiwan's opposition party, Chung Li-wan, is worried about Chinese rhetoric and argues Taiwan should limit its defense spending and says more weapons could provoke the very war they're designed to avoid. She also recently told Deutsche Welle NATO was to blame for the war in Ukraine.
Putin is a president elected through democratic votes. You can't label him a dictator. Pinning that label on him is unreasonable and unfair.
But the Taiwanese government, with the help of the Trump administration, is trying to arm itself to avoid the war. The Ukraine has had to fight. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin.
Okay, we're going to go to a Clinton spokesperson is going to be talking about the Epstein files. And the Epstein files are so important, we need to cover it because we need to talk about tabloid news, don't we? But before we do, please make sure you go to my website and get the foundation of the anti-aging protocol. Get the multivitamin. This has the multivitamins that you need for proper enzymatic activity. The multivitamins in here are cofactors for proper enzymatic activity, so your cells perform properly, and it's an easy to digest multivitamin. In addition, get the probiotic. You can get my powder probiotic that's in stock. Take it every day, and what this will do is improve your gut biome, allow you to absorb your nutrients, improve your immune system at the gut level. You'll sleep better. You'll be able to detoxify your central nervous system. You'll consolidate memory. You get rid of brain fog, slow down the aging process when you sleep better. A lot of people don't realize that a good gut biome also helps the brain function. And a good gut biome will help with your metabolism and skin health. So please go to my store, get the probiotic and the multivitamin, tape them together. That's the foundation for the health protocol. Clarity factor gets rid of brain fog. This is a very powerful neurostack. This will allow you to concentrate. And when you take this regularly every day, right? Take it every day, you're going to improve your dendritic connections. You're going to be able to think faster, and you're going to have better memory. It's powerful, very powerful. Take it every day. I don't care how old you are. Vitamin B complex. This should be something that is in your protocol if you're 40 years of age or older. Vitamin B complex has the B vitamins to improve your cellular metabolism. B12 protects your neurons. And the first 4 B vitamins in this complex will help your mitochondria produce more ATP. Super important. So you have more energy, you have better cellular metabolism, you'll be more active, and you're protecting your neurons. Super important to take. And good night formula. Like I've been saying, having proper sleep is really important to slow down the aging process. This is tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. This will help you to get into those 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. So you're detoxifying your central nervous system, you're consolidating memory, and you're going to be well rested. When you do this regularly, you're going to be able to bring down your cortisol levels. Your body will be less stressed, and you're improving your brain function. Super important. And with good regular sleep, you're slowing down the aging process. Ones that are sleep deprived age faster and increase the probability of early onset of dementia. So please go to my store, get the Good Night formula, get the Clarity Factor, get the vitamin B complex, and get the probiotic and the multivitamin. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. I want you to save money. It's all caps, discount 5. And also, if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
With Security Council Chief of Staff Alex Gray and Fix California Senior Advisor Katie Zachariah. Alex, let me begin with you. I want to share this. This is actually a spokesperson for Bill Clinton. I want to share their thoughts on the release of these files. Quoting now, the White House hasn't been hiding these files for months, only to dump them late on a Friday to protect Bill Clinton. This is about shielding themselves from what comes next or from what they'll try to hide forever, so they can release as many grainy 20-plus-year-old photos as they want. But this isn't about Bill Clinton. Strong reaction from his team. Not surprising. What do you think?
I didn't notice that kind of reaction when they put out pictures of President Trump from the Epstein estate that were out of context, that were clearly with the president with adult women doing totally innocuous things. And you didn't hear this sort of reaction at all, did you, Kevin?
No, it didn't.
So I think this is exactly what I would expect from Bill Clinton and his team, who I think we've known for a long time. I will probably have a lot of questions to answer as more documents come out. Doesn't surprise me that they would react this way at all.
Yeah, I think Alex hits it on the head there, Katie, because he's right. There will be more documents that will come out. And truth be told, you can't assume guilt simply because your name is in a file or because you're standing next to someone, but it doesn't necessarily look that great either. What do you think?
Well, Kevin, I'm looking at this, and the quiet part out loud is that the Democrats want us to believe that they had this information in 2016, 2020, and 2024, but somehow magnanimously withheld information that could have been damning to President Trump. Yet they had to manufacture Russia, 2 impeachment hoaxes, a now likely very criminal raid on Mar-a-Lago that's seeming to lack probable cause. And then the coalescing of Juan Merchan, Merrick Garland, Letitia James, Comey, all to come against President Trump, yet they had all this information against him this entire time, Kevin. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it at all.
And there are a lot of people who would add to that what happened up in New York, too, with not just Letitia James, but also Bragg. I mean, they really did go after President Trump, trying to, it's been argued, to keep him from running and certainly keep him from winning when none of that worked, because he did end up winning in 2024. Anyway, let me share this. This is the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, talking about what's happening vis-a-vis Venezuela. We've seen this buildup of American forces again, this idea of interdicting, Alex, the drug trafficking that's been coming out of that country into our country and others. Listen to the Secretary, get your thoughts on the other side.
At the end of the day, it is clear that the current status quo with the Venezuelan regime is intolerable for the United States. The status quo, that they operate and cooperate with terrorist organizations against the national interests of the United States. Not just cooperate, but partner with and participate in activities that threaten the national interests of the United States. So yes, our goal is to change that dynamic.
It's making it sound like this goes all the way to the very top of leadership in that country. Is that fair?
I think it's absolutely fair. And we should be clear, though, about this, Kevin. This is not an Iraq-style nation-building democracy campaign. This is about changing the behavior of Nicolas Maduro and the inner circle around him, so they stop sending drugs into the United States that kill Americans every day. They stop serving as a proxy for China, Russia, and Iran in our hemisphere. And it's about, I think, replacing the Maduro regime at the very top, if they refuse to change their behavior, with another organizing group that's willing to work collaboratively with us to keep the hemisphere safe. It's not about building democracy or changing institutions in Venezuela in that way.
Let me get you in on this one, Katie, while we have a little time left. The president talking tonight about the strong reaction and hits back on Syria. As you know, a few Americans were killed in the eastern part of that country. Get this sound to you, listen to this, and get your reaction after.
We hit the ISIS thugs in Syria who were trying to regroup after their decimation by the Trump administration 5 years ago. We hit them hard. I ordered a massive strike on the terrorists that killed our 3 great patriots last week. 2 soldiers, 1 interpreter, all great people. And it was very successful. It was precision. We hit every site flawlessly.
Kate, you heard Alex mention it. Listen, this administration has been incredibly aggressive, not just in interdicting drugs in this hemisphere, but also exacting justice abroad. 30 seconds, your thoughts on the strikes tonight by the U.S.?
Well, this is what President Trump was elected on, Kevin. He wanted to make America safer again. He showed us in 2016 what he did to ISIS. Those ISIS people, those ISIS agents and groups redefined themselves and grew bigger as Biden was in power. And President Trump is now having to come back and correct that. And he's working, thankfully, with the Syrian leader, Ahmed al-Shara, and he's able to target these ISIS groups and eliminate them so they're not a danger to Americans. And again, thank God for a commander-in-chief like President Trump who can deliver on this, and that we have a commander who is strong and does exactly what he says he's going to do, unlike our former President Joe Biden.
And this is also important for messaging. I think when you see something like this happen, in particular, not just in Syria, but people in the region and perhaps even globally say, you better think twice before you hit the Americans. Alex and Katie, thank you both for your time tonight. I certainly appreciate that.
Chase the Northern Lights by train. Travel with a rail pass and remember this winter forever.
Let's listen into Bloomberg Television, how China became a superpower and what comes next for its economy.
As we continue our review of the first quarter of the 21st century, we turn to one country that has been a story, well, really many stories, in and of itself. Our colleague Enda Curran takes us through China's remarkable transformation.
China joining the WTO in 2001 was probably one of the most consequential decisions, not just for China's economy, but for the world economy.
The WTO agreement will move China in the right direction.
So companies could shift there and both tap into the Chinese market and, of course, export from China to the rest of the world.
The slowdown is not only in the developed country. It will also become a sharp slowdown in the developing country.
The global financial crisis reverberated all around the world.
China is going forward with a $500 billion stimulus package. It will build schools and subways, power plants and hospitals.
China played a crucial role stepping up, spending that money, generating all that demand and activity, and in that period, China did become the world's second biggest economy. Belt and Road positioned China as someone who was willing to invest and a source of new capital at a time when capital was becoming scarcer. They invested into ports, they invested into rail networks, they invested into motorways. Well, China has been a victim of its own economic success in so many ways. As China moved up the value chain, then it became a threat to some of those Western economies that had been doing business with China in the first place.
We've been ripped off by China.
No longer are the doors just open for free two-way trade. China had the virus under control, so they took opportunity and really took a leap in terms of electric vehicles and in lithium batteries in particular. Clearly, that window was when the rest of the world was caught napping. China was doing just fine. It wasn't until later when China started to impose restrictions on its real estate sector, and its real estate sector started to slow down, that you began to see some of the brakes being hit on China's economy.
The problem being that home buyers are afraid to buy homes, worried about distressed developers not being able to deliver on the homes a year later.
This stuff has been going on for several years now, and I think it has taken some of the gloss off China's economy for the rest of the world.
Sonny Beschloss of Rock Creek and Elizabeth Economy of the Hoover Institution have spent a good part of the last 25 years traveling to the Middle Kingdom and coming back to try to make sense of it.
Before we get their update, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support capitalism in the United States. Get the vitamin D3 from my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. Vitamin D3 will help to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis because they're infected. Really important to take in the winter season. And vitamin D3 is a gene expression cofactor, so your cells perform properly. And vitamin D3 helps to build denser bone. You do resistance training, take vitamin D3, take in calcium, and that calcium will be deposited in your bone matrix. So you have denser bone. A lot of people don't realize that if you get in your geriatric years and you have brittle bones and you fall, and you break a hip, most likely you're going to die in 2 weeks. You don't want that. Please go to my store and get the Myotrol. Myotrol will help to build more muscle and maintain that muscle. And when you're building muscle and you're doing resistance training, you're also putting stress on your bone structure and allowing for your body to build more bone matrix so you have denser bone. So musculature and bone density is super important to slow down the aging process. Myotrol will help with building that muscle. This has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with the gene expression to build muscle. Do some resistance training and take the Myotrol. And gladiator barley helps to build muscle. You can stack it with the Myotrol. You can take them separately, but it's better if you stack them. And gladiator barley is going to help to build muscle, bring down inflammation, detoxify your body, and soak up free radicals so you slow down the aging process. This is very powerful. This is a month's supply. It's a micronutrient protein that you can't get at a regular store. This is pretty powerful stuff, all right? Do some resistance training, bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, detoxify your body. And when you're doing that regularly, your immune system is better. Your endocrine system is better. Bringing down inflammation at the vascular level is going to help with your cardiovascular health. Bringing inflammation down on your joints is going to help with joint health. Bringing down inflammation at the cerebral level is going to help with your neurons. Please go to my store, get the gladiator barley, slow down the aging process. Make sure you use discount 5 to save some money. And if you spend $100 or more, guess what? You get a free gift. Till supplies last.
They look back at some of the country's biggest changes and challenges. Elizabeth, you've been going to China for quite a few years now. As we look back over the first 25 years of this century, how has China changed?
The transformation has been extraordinary, of course. I think if you look back to 2000, for example, China was an economy of $1.2 trillion. GDP per capita was around $1,000. And it was making more bicycles than cars. It was very much trying to adapt its domestic politics and economics to the demands of the international community. What we see today is pretty radically different from what we saw in 2000. Its GDP per capita now is $13,000. Of course, it's not making bicycles so much anymore as, the most EVs and electric vehicles in the world. And
let's see if this Bloomberg contributor is going to say that they're also spending their money on military equipment to have a war in the Pacific against the United States. Brought to you by Walmart, so you can buy cheap spatulas.
Electric vehicles, largest manufacturer, consumer, and exporter. Today, you have China saying, we're front and center, and we'd like the international community to adapt to us. So what you have is China no longer being a rule taker, but a rule maker.
I know you've just recently been in China. How does it feel on the ground, as it were, over there?
It is a tale of two Chinas in many respects. I'm driving around in Beijing. There's no traffic. There's a kind of gray pall that seems to have settled over the city. The economic activity is not what you might expect. You don't see cranes dotting, the landscape, a lot of new building and enthusiasm. You don't have the sense of a dynamic economy. But when you meet with Chinese officials, and you meet with, Chinese tech leaders, you definitely have a sense of confidence. And, the Chinese officials believe that they have a model that works. And that model is investing in technology. I visited an EV factory where they're producing 300,000 EVs in a year, and they only have 2,100 people on their factory floors, and the factory is spotless. You could eat off the floor. It's extraordinary, and they are very confident. They're confident about their ability to compete with the United States. They're confident that they're on the right trajectory. Again, though, I think for the broader, swath of Chinese people, consumption is not rebounded. They're not feeling it. This is very much an economy of haves and have-nots. And the haves are moving ahead very aggressively.
One of the things we've seen over the last 25 years is a migration, first of all, into the middle class, from the rural into the urban setting. Is that continuing?
I think it's one of the interesting things that we haven't seen the middle class continue to expand. And the Chinese are just beginning to wake up to the fact that artificial intelligence and their move toward robotics, they already have 250,000 robots. I think we have about 10,000, in their factories operating. They're going to put people out of work. And so one of the factories that we visited was an autonomous vehicle factory. And the person who was, taking us on the sort of tour of the factory said that they are now being told by the local government that they're going to need to help find jobs for the people that their autonomous vehicles supplant. At the same time, the local government's not allowing them to charge any more than regular taxi drivers or Didi drivers, because they don't want those people to go out of work. So I think they have not figured out how they're going to manage the technological change and the demands for employment.
How much success has China already had in reshaping the international community?
I would say much less than we might anticipate. It doesn't seem as though much of the rest of the world is interested in trading the current international system for a China-led international system. That being said, if you're looking for Chinese technological influence or economic influence globally, certainly the Belt and Road and the Digital Silk Road have been transformative. Look at Huawei, which has 70% of the 4G in Africa. Their satellite system now rivals GPS. So I think they can look at any number of metrics and say, we've had a success. At the same time, of course, there have been protests in virtually every Belt and Road country about how China's done business. Interest and the desire, the willingness to have Chinese investment stems from the fact that they can't get that kind of investment from any other country. So I think, if we were to go in and really be competitive, for example, in Africa, in this idea that we're going to promote our tech stack globally, I think we'd be welcomed.
In 3 days, Silicon Valley Bank had failed. We needed to know if any of our investments were at risk. I turned to my research team and said, let's do our homework.
We understand in the West just how far ahead China is getting in some respects in technology and manufacturing.
I think most people think of China as producing consumer goods, their toys, basic goods. And that is the way they started. But today is a whole other world. So what is happening is most of us are now reliant on not just their basic ingredients being made, but the new molecules being developed in China. EV cars, let's say. The batteries that they are producing are so far ahead than the ones we're producing. So they are jumping ahead in ways that we did not expect. They might have less power constraints, the way they're building nuclear plants and the way they're using clean energy and renewable energy, the opposite of what we're doing in the US. And that's because the government in China is putting so much capital to work alongside the private sector, something that in the most recent past we're not doing.
What is that enormous move forward for China as an economy, as a government, and for the people of China?
So if we look at the people of China, when this whole process started 20, 25 years ago, there was hope. They were growing fast, double-digit growth. A lot of opportunities for people to get new jobs, move from agriculture to industry into cities, and get out of that extreme poverty. And right now, what's happening because of the overcapacity, let's say, if you're producing EV cars, you might be getting paid less because they have the overcapacity. You're lucky to have a job. So the situation for the individual may not have got better, but China as a whole continues to do well. I think one thing that I found very interesting is we in the US always say China should start consuming more. And if they consume more, they will export less. We will have less of a problem, and they will deal with their growth with domestic consumption. What is very clear with President Xi, but also really maybe people who came before him, they're not interested in domestic consumption. They're interested in world supremacy, as has become evident. So you need to do the quantum, you need to do the AI, you need to be ahead on robotics, you need to be ahead on producing things so that you control your own destiny, but potentially you control other people's destiny. And I think that's what we've missed, really realizing ourselves here.
How have Chinese relations with the United States and with the West changed over these 25 years?
Obviously, when we had the Nixon and the Kissinger period and the opening up and WTO, it was the West hoping that China would open up to US goods and to a more liberal democratic system. And as one went to China and you would talk to your Chinese counterparts, it was always a very open dialogue. What has been very different the last few years is that China has become more closed. If there's one thing that, because they've always been very careful in how they show their hands to the rest of the world, they are showing more overconfidence than before. The other thing is that if you sit in China today, who would expect that the US would be kneecapping its own universities, its own research, its own biotech, is investing less in technology at scale, is not investing in nuclear power, and is not working with its allies? So in a way, that, if you're sitting in President Xi's seat today, you see a lot of potential for China.
All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the heirloom barley. Heirloom barley is similar to the gladiator barley, but it doesn't focus on the musculature. It will help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. This is a month's supply, and by doing that, you're improving your immune system, your endocrine system, your cardiovascular system. You're slowing down the aging process. Take it every day. And guess what? By taking gladiator barley or heirloom barley, you're also reducing the recovery time when you work out. And turmeric. Turmeric will bring down inflammation and soak up free radicals, help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Lignans will bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, help with your immune system and your endocrine system. Stack them together, especially with ashwagandha root. And when you do that, you're boosting up your immune system. It's a great way to get healthy and slow down the aging process. And guess what? If you're in the cold season, the winter season, don't you think that you need to bring down inflammation and soak up free radicals to boost up that immune system? So take the heirloom barley, get the lignans and the turmeric, boost up that immune system. Because guess what? You're going to need it. I guarantee it. All right. All right, let's see. What else is going on here? Let's listen in really about oil prices, poised to keep falling because there's an oversupply. I think the oversupply is an agreement between Trump and MDS to be able to soften the blow when we hit Venezuela.
When you left work last week, you worried about things most tech CEOs worry about. This week, with PwC's Industry Edge, you're not thinking like a tech company, but more like an investor.
Was it just fracking that we learned, or different extraction methods? What turned that theory on its head?
Technology, fracking is part of that for sure, absolutely. Particularly here in the United States, totally turned around the fortunes of the United States oil industry, and you could argue the US economy. But also oil companies got good at extracting oil far, far below the sea, at deep, trillion miles beneath beneath the sea, beneath the ocean, in a way that was, unforeseeable. So we no longer talk about peak oil production. It's not a thing. We talk about peak demand, maybe, but that's some way off as well. We talked about that briefly during the pandemic. Both are growing right now.
All right. So what does that mean? That, prices are already down in terms of oil prices this year. Do they continue to go down?
That's the consensus. Getting into the price prediction game is a bit tricky, and I never want to go there. But look, when you look at where we are at the moment right now, I think Brent is around $60 a barrel. It began the year around 80. As our story today says, people are talking about prices in the 50s next year, possibly even low. We could see that, and it could go down there.
Great for when we're filling up our cars at the gas station.
Still feels a little pricey when I
Does it?
A little bit.
You got to go to the not fancy gas stations. But compared to where we've been in the past few years, this is so much lower.
That's true.
So it puts more money in consumers' pockets. It's stimulative to the economy. But we were speaking with Michael McKee a little earlier, and he made the point that it also, the challenge though, is what it does for drillers and what it does for oil exploration and an economy where the president politically wants to drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, he was backed by the oil industry in his election campaign pretty heavily, pretty prominently. They want to have greater freedom to drill where they want, when they want, without regulation, too much regulation in their arguments. And there's a wall of oil coming to the market. It's not just coming from the United States; it's coming from OPEC as well, and that's a bit of a problem for companies here in the US. Now, they've got a lot more efficient, particularly here again in the United States, since the pandemic, since the nadir of the market. When you remember, we had negative prices at one stage, we had people going bankrupt. They've done a very good job of getting their costs right down, producing more from each well. So their break-even costs have gone down. But when you're talking about prices in the 50s, you're not far off break-even prices for a lot of producers here in the US. And there are some producers on the high-cost side who are going to struggle.
Okay, so what are break-even prices? Like, what is the cost of extraction?
It's a great question. It's always really difficult to answer. But if you're looking at the Permian Basin down in Texas and New Mexico, which is the biggest oil patch in the United States, probably around somewhere in $40 to $50 on average. For the Exxons and Chevrons of the world, they can live with prices below $50. Once you start to get to $40 and below, even they are going to have to make some tough decisions.
So, one of the things I think about a lot is what oil has done in making power brokers in the world, geopolitically or just economically. I was looking at, I think, Bloomberg says US, Saudi Arabia, Russia are, I think, the top producers in terms of oil. Canada and Iraq are also significant producers. But I do wonder, with this oversupply, how does that change the dynamics of that power structure?
Well, the US made this big comeback. So with the fracking revolution, the US went from a net importer.
That's a big deal, right?
So it's a big deal. Yeah. It really is a foreign policy tool that wasn't really there like a generation ago. And you can see that now with the Trump administration. It's not just oil, but remember gas as well. They talk about exporting LNG and how that changes the relationship with Europe. Europe is much more reliant on American energy than it used to be. So it's a positive for the United States. Look, Saudi Arabia is the power that it is because it's the next biggest oil producer. The
low efficient oil producers, their break even is around 60. The next level that's efficient, the break even is 55. And the best efficient wells in the United States, their break even is around 50. So it depends on what tier that you're going to. All right? On average, anything that is 55 or below, you're going to start seeing oil wells slowing their production and to burn off their oversupply. And eventually the price will start to go up again. It's 55 is that threshold point. There's stress that starts to build at 60, below 60, but 55 is the inflection point. This 45 crap, yeah, you could sustain a 45 for maybe 1 month, but not multiple months. No way. No way.
Sort of far more cheaply than anyone else. Its costs are way lower than what
Meaning the cost of extraction.
Cost of extraction.
So how low?
I mean, that's a closely guarded secret, but smarter people than me estimate that it's in the single digits.
Wow.
Well, and the IMF says they effectively, Saudi Arabia needs a crude price that's close to $90 a barrel.
That's the issue, yeah.
Right? And it's nearing its highest ever annual level of debt issuance this year. I mean, this is a change of fortunes.
They produce oil very profitably, and yet fiscally they're in a bit of a sticky situation. Right. They're having to issue, I think, a record amount of debt this year to make
Exactly. So with Saudi Arabia, they need Brent to be above 60. All right. So Brent's usually, a few dollars more than WTI. They can't have Brent below 60. It's a major problem for them. Fiscally. Not in terms of profitability for the oil drilling, or oil producing, I should say. But if you're not close to $80 for Brent, guess what? Saudi Arabia has a problem. So you can't be in the 50 range, 50 handle. You can't be at the low 60 handle for very long for Saudi Arabia. So you have profitability for the wells that will eventually self-correct and raise the price. And then you have Brent crude that needs to be at a higher trading range for Saudi Arabia to be able to finance their government.
Where does OPEC Plus come into this? Because OPEC Plus could tighten the spigot a little bit. They could reduce supply,
and maybe they will. Look, they've been steadily increasing,
and that would bring prices up.
It would, but then it's they're a group. They have to find consensus. What's been going on this year, in large part, is a grab for market share, and this is one of the big games going on behind the scenes. Is US shale has been tremendously successful, especially post-pandemic. Yeah. They've steadily expanded, not in a reckless way, I think, compared to previous cycles. But as the OPEC had pulled back, the US shale had got more of the world's share, a bigger share of global supply. And the Saudis wanted to take back some of that share. That's what they've been doing. They have all this idle capacity, they wanted to get it back. But I mean, yes, if prices continue sliding, if the global economy shows signs of weakness, maybe they'll have to take the opposite tack to what they've done this year.
In the last 15 years, oil cannot be at the 40 handle for very long, and it creeps back up. Or even the low 50.
And the oversupply. I mean, quite a change from where we were. I grew up in the 70s, and I remember, the license plates, odd evens, and who could go to the gas station. So I'm just wondering the net takeaway of what this all means.
There is plenty of supply, and look, the outlook for prices next year are pretty bearish, and it's going to take something truly extraordinary to change that. And you can never rule out price shocks, because what did we see in 2022? We saw a major war, Russia-Ukraine, and that changed things completely overnight, and prices went above $100 a barrel. So, God forbid something like that happens again. But that is that's the main takeaway from the story. There's plenty of supply next year, and it's unlikely to change in the short to medium term.
I started All-Nation Restoration to help people. Chase for Business is literally what it says in the name. It is Chase for Business, where I can find everything I need in one place.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. It has a very comprehensive profile. This will target multiple systems. It'll target brain function. It'll help with your brain function. Help to get rid of that brain fog. You're going to be able to think better. You're going to actually sleep better. And Boomer Boost helps with cardiovascular health. Reduce inflammation, reduce plaque buildup. Especially if you do cardio training and some resistance training. And Boomer Boost helps rev up your energy levels and revs up your metabolism. So you have a good weight control. You can control your A1C levels. You'll have more energy. You'll feel the effects of Boomer Boost within 72 hours. 72 hours. Just take this, and in 72 hours, you're going to have more energy, and it's a steady burn of energy. It doesn't spike, and you're going to have more vitality, and you're going to be more active. You take this on a regular basis, and you're going to slow down the aging process. Take it every day. This is a month's supply. In addition, it helps with musculature. So you get a lot of benefit from this, and it slows down the aging process. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take this every day. Please. This will help you get healthy. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift. You're going to need that free gift. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take advantage. Spend $100 or more. Get a free gift until supplies last. All right, let's listen to Schwab Network about oil.
Let's take a closer look now at these energy markets. Joining us is Carly Garner, who's the senior commodity strategist broker at Carly Trading. Thank you so much for joining me today. Look, where do you see things heading in 2026? Obviously, it's not been a great year for prices. We've had a lot of the geopolitical risk premium being priced in right now. Plenty of moving parts. So what's your outlook?
I don't know. I mean, I trade energy all the time. I'm trading natural gas all the time. I'm trading crude oil all the time. I made money. I don't know what they're talking about. You want up and down. Now, I'm longing natural gas right now, and I'm longing crude. WTI futures. Let's see what they have to say.
Well, you're right. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's never boring in oil, right? The one thing that I can say is I can't see the future, but I look very closely at what we've seen in the past. And when I look at historical charts, the outlook for crude oil looks relatively bleak in 2026. Now, seasonality is bullish for the next 2 or 3 weeks, so I would expect to see crude oil get a little bit of a bounce in the short run. Chart looks good. Got a daily chart. We're a little oversold. Seasonality is strong. The dollar's weak. So I do expect a little bit of a short-term bounce, but I think it's going to be a lot of what we saw last year going from 2024 to 2025. That seasonal rally.
It's going to be trading at 56 to about 60 or 61. But when we hit Venezuela, there's going to be I think a $4 or $5 spike, and then it'll come back down. So a great way to make money on this is long, get the revenue from the spike, and then short for the downtrend. I don't think Venezuela is going to last for very long. I think we're going to hit a bunch of things, and then we're going to say enough is enough. All right, but let's see what she has to say. But I think there's going to be a trading range between 56 to about 61. And then when we hit, the added complication here is when we hit Venezuela, I think there's going to be a $4 spike. So if it's $4 or $5 spike. So if it's trading at 56, it's going to trade at 60 pretty quickly and then come back down. But I think there's going to be a trading range, but it can't stay in the 50 zone for very long because we'll start reducing production. And then eventually it'll start ticking up and go above 60 and start trading in about the 60 or 61 range to about the 64, 65 range. A good spot in the United States is about 60 to 65. It's bad to have it trade at 56 because eventually the oil producers are going to tighten the spigot.
Last year was about $10. It was pretty sharp. It got market participants and analysts pretty bulled up, expecting higher prices, thinking that was the bottom in oil, and it wasn't. It ended up being the starting point. We really haven't seen $70 oil, which is where we came in at the beginning of the year. We haven't really seen that much at all this year. We saw one quick rally up to 70 and it sold off, and that's kind of been the.
I don't see a 70 handle in 2026. I'm barring a war. A major war, not a war in Venezuela.
modus operandi for crude oil since March of 22. Every single rally has been sold into sharply, and I think that's going to continue to be the case. Over the last 2 decades, we've had 4 bear markets in oil, this being the 4th one. And the other 3 really didn't end in a civilized manner. In fact, it was very uncivilized. We saw around the financial crisis, oil capitulated into the 32 area. In the 2016 bear market in oil, we got down to 26. And then we all remember 2020, the bear market didn't end until we saw crude oil slide to $20 on the back months, and the front month went negative. So it's too early to call a bottom. I think we've got some more pain in the tape here going into 2026. And unless we see capitulation in price and sentiment, if analysts start talking about lower for longer, that's when I might start looking for a bottom. And I think we're far, far from that. I think we could easily see $40. Historically, when crude drops below 65, we generally have support at 40. But with time, that 40 support has been given way to much lower prices. So be on the lookout for a bit of a washout before we can start looking for an oil bottom.
Your energy producers would go out of business if it was sustained below 40. Like I said, you have 3 major tiers of profitability: 60, 55, and 50. Now, yeah, you can have oil, at that break-even level or slightly above or slightly below for 2-3 months, but you can't go beyond that. And then it self-corrects. What would have to happen is a glut of oil. To have her scenario to happen, you'd have to have a glut of oil and a major recession happening at the same time.
Okay, interesting. Obviously the prevailing narrative this year has been one of a supply concern. We've had OPEC Plus, of course, that's now said it's going to basically sit on its hands in Q1. But we've got plenty of moving parts as far as, the Ukraine-Russia peace negotiations that are going on right now, what that's going to mean for the potential for Russian volumes to hit the market in what is oversupplied already as far as the market is concerned. And obviously this week we are tracking the lines of this blockade of these sanctioned Venezuelan oil tankers as well. Which is the biggest story that you're keeping an eye on right now, which has the potential to impact prices?
In my opinion, the Russian-Ukraine story is kind of the driver. I believe that the market has had a roughly 10, maybe even more risk premium built into pricing because of the Russian sanctions. That we're going to strengthen, enhance sanctions and that sort of thing. And if we do get some sort of
bullshit. No. That may have been true at the very beginning, but once you start having Saudi Arabia, the OPEC Plus, and the United States producing more oil, it filled up the gap, and then prices start to mitigate. Now, if there is and so it reached homeostasis. At first, I would say that there was a risk premium right when the war started, right? And it was questionable what was going to happen, and there were some other things that were going on too at the same time. But the thing is that risk premium has evaporated because other producers came online and produced more oil. And so and produced too much oil, actually. Okay. Now, if Russia signs a peace agreement right now, the initial shock to oil would go down $5. All right, so if it's trading at 56, it may go down to 50 or 49. All right, but eventually what will happen is that will launch a counter reaction by the producers in the United States and OPEC Plus to actually reduce production as Russia is selling their oil. And so OPEC Plus and the United States reduces, Russia starts selling, and eventually it reaches an equilibrium. You'll get an initial $5, maybe $6 shock going lower in WTI and in Brent, but eventually it'll creep back up and start trading in the 50 to 60 range, the 56 to 60 range. So there may be an initial shock there. But the shock right now, we don't have a premium built in right now because of Russia. That was a long time ago. That was in 2022 when that was brought into the equation. She's totally wrong on this. Totally wrong.
Ukraine conflict, I do believe it probably allows crude oil to finally fall to that $40-$45 dollar per barrel area that has historically been the case. I don't know what it's going to take to trigger the washout to deeper levels, which again, the last the last 3 bear markets have required a massive washout before we can get a bull market in crude oil. Just to put things in perspective, I'm not saying crude oil is going to $14 or $15, but if we repeated this in this cycle, what we repeated in the last 3 cycles, we would absolutely see $14 or $15 per barrel. I don't want to see that because if that happens, that means there's something lurking around the corner that we're not expecting. But
if that happened, Saudi Arabia would have a big problem. There would be more tension in the Middle East to push up the oil price. Because if you notice, when oil is too cheap, there is a Middle Eastern conflict. Have you ever noticed that? So there's no way it's going to 15. It would have to be a major reset. You're talking COVID levels. No way. And if it stays at the low 50 handle, you're going to have oil producers in the United States shutting the spigot. It has to trade at around 55 to 60. That would be normal. And they would prefer to trade at the low 60 range, like 62. But that still creates a hole for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia needs $80, $90 a barrel. They're having problems. There's no way that this is going to happen. No way.
people to be aware that that is a possibility. There's no reason to be complacent here. Crude oil, once it gets on this slippery slope, it's really hard to stop the downside momentum until basically everyone in the world is too scared to buy, and that's when crude oil bottoms, unfortunately.
Okay, just talk to us about some of your thoughts on natural gas. Obviously, we've seen some signs of stabilization this week. A lot of seasonal factors driving that. Obviously, the colder weather looks bullish as far as the buyers for nat gas. But just wondering what your overall thoughts are and the outlook for natural gas going into 2026.
So like in crude oil, 65 is a historical pivot. Natural gas has a similar historical pivot around 360. And what that means is when prices get above 360, the market behaves very bullishly. And when it drops below 360, it behaves very bearishly. And so we're looking at a kind of a potential test of that 360 mark here in the next week or so. We got pretty close to it a few days ago and we've bounced, but this is an interesting time of year. Most people expect natural gas to go higher during the winter because we're consuming energy to heat homes. But the reality is the seasonal rally, the consumption or expectations of the consumption of that energy occurs earlier in the year. So this time of year, it's generally a sell the rallies type of market. So I do expect us to see a little bit lower. And I'll put things into perspective as well. Natural gas trading at roughly $4 seems very cheap because it seems expensive because we're coming off a $2 low, but it's a far cry from the $10 we saw 3 years ago. I wouldn't expect natural gas to really have any momentum more than $5, $6, even in the most bullish scenario. So we need to kind of pull back our expectations. What we saw in 2022, 2023 was abnormal, and going forward, we're probably going to see much tighter ranges. I'd say low around $2, highs around maybe $5.50 at the most. So keep your expectations tempered.
Okay, good look at the commodities patch for us this morning. Thank you so much, Carly Garner, Senior Commodities.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and you can also get it in avocado oil. C60 needs to be in an oil for proper absorption. Take a teaspoon a day every day, preferably on an empty stomach in the morning. If you work out, take it before your workout. You're going to recover quicker. You're going to soak up those free radicals. By soaking up free radicals, you're slowing down the aging process. for your skin, by soaking free radicals at the basal layer, your skin will be healthier. C60 stacks really well with resveratrol for healthy basal layer for your skin. Also, C60 soaks up free radicals in your cells, improves the mitochondrial health, improves your energy levels, so you have more ATP, so the cells are going to perform better. When you reduce the free radicals in a cell, there's less stress in the cell, less inflammation that's going on. So your cells and your tissues will perform better. You'll have a better endocrine system and a better immune system. In addition, by soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're reducing oxidized LDL. You're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL. And by doing that, you're reducing plaque formation. And for your neurons, by soaking up the free radicals in your neurons will have more ATP, you're going to produce more neurotransmitters, and over time, you're going to have better dendritic connections, you're going to think faster, you're going to have better memory. You're going to slow down the aging process. You're going to feel the effects of taking C60 within 2 months. In addition, C60, if you take it for 1 year, you will notice that you look younger after 1 year. So please do me a favor. Take the C60 every day, a teaspoon a day, every day. All right? And get healthy. This is about 1,000 times more potent than vitamin C. Take a teaspoon a day every day. It stacks well with resveratrol, ubiquinol, NAD+, Boom or Boost. Get healthy. All right? That's the show for today. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Slow down the aging process, boost up the immune system. And that is how you're going to navigate through the problems that are happening during this winter season. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.